Good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of CC3 Pastime Videos. We did a little video the other day on our other channel about a whale, and I got a nice bit of response.
We did indeed.
So we went through our archives, and we discovered that we've got an extensive amount of information concerning the whales that have happened upon our bay. So Rob, now you've been involved in the whales that showed here.
Yes, back in '98, I think it was when a bowhead whale came ashore in Rattling Brook, and
Caused quite a stir.
it did cause quite a stir, and it was hard to make a pot of soup out of it, so they decided to cut it up and see if they could salvage the bones. But we did have a lot of video on it. We had a lot of interest in it from the universities and from, I remember at least from Boston. I think there was people from Boston.
University of Sciences here.
Yeah,
PEI,
yeah.
Sciences there.
And we on this particular video, there's several segments that we're going to make out of it. One was a particular video was about the supper that the community held for the scientists and the people who were dissecting the whale.
That's going to be for a later video, but this one is going to show the actual, I'll call it capture
And dissecting, I believe.
And bringing it ashore and getting it...
Yeah. Getting ready for the pot.
Yeah,
make that pot of soup. And if this particular whale is a bowhead whale, is the only, at that point, it was the only bowhead whale ever sighted, dead or alive, in the waters of Newfoundland. But now since that, there's been another one. I think it's 2006, was it, or
2005. 2005. Yeah, that one was in around Witless Bay and on the southern shore of Avalon.
It was indeed. So those were actually, even to this point, I think there's only been the two that was ever sighted in these waters. So at the time the whale came ashore, they thought it was the rare right whale, which was what actually initiated all the flurry about everybody wanted to have a look to see which one of the pod that was missing.
Yes,
and after they got here, they discovered that it wasn't a right whale. It was a wrong whale.
It was a bowhead. Yeah. But there's not a big lot of information on the bowhead, so it was still ended up being a win-win. So
it did,
because they don't usually come this far south down to Newfoundland because the waters is too warm. So quite a rare occurrence.
It was. And so we're going to have probably 3 videos or so on that, or maybe even more. So just stay tuned to our CC3 Pastime Videos YouTube channel, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
And share.
Oh, and share.
So this is the beginning.
This is the beginning. You follow the oil slick.
Yeah.
Must have been a cholesterol problem with the whale.
Yeah.
This is the initial, I won't say the initial because people seen it before we did, but now my first sighting was in Windermere Cabins at Rattling Brook. That's where two just off the shore from there. Rob, I believe you got involved in this too.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure if this is before. I'm thinking this is after I seen it. Clooney called me one day when I was at work and said there's apparently a whale floating around the bay, wondering if you could get the camera and go down during your lunch break or whatever and see if you can get some video of it, see what it is. So the only place I could get to get a good look at it was out through the Rattling Brook Cemetery and get it over the hill. And I got some video through the trees, and sure enough we could see that it was a whale. And
so it was fairly close to the beach at that time?
It was fairly close to the beach.
Just off of what we refer to as the Bar Rocks down there.
Yeah, and I guess it must have been floating around a bit back, because I think this is probably after, because there's a boat there involved now. So.
And the water's fairly shallow. You can see you can see the bottom there, right? But it does seem like it goes. There's video there of it down towards the old school or the wharf just there, and then back up here. So whether it's the video's been mingled or whatever the case might be, but it was in several places.
There's a crew on site there, Terry, right?
Yes, CC3 sent out a camera crew, and from the colour scheme of that boat, I'm going to make a guess that it's probably Lloyd Burt's speedboat. That's just a random guess, but.
And it appears that Clooney is on site there as well.
Yeah.
But it must have been a span of a few days or quite a few days, because there were people brought in from Boston. There was people came in from New Brunswick and St. John's. So
PEI.
Yeah, there was there was quite a few people that had gathered up there, so it didn't just happen overnight.
No.
I still think this is the initial sighting, and these people were notified by who, we don't know, because my memory can't bring it back who it was.
No,
Who made the call.
we're not even sure who made the initial sighting.
There's probably somebody around that's
Yeah.
got to carry it on
Yeah,
all the facts
you,
that's there, so.
if you can think of it, maybe you can remember that you were the first one to see it, so we'd love to know.
I won't stretch that out that I'm the first one to see it, because it was well up through Rattling Brook then.
Yeah,
It looks like they're securing it there now in this shot.
yeah,
I'm going to assume to wait for the scientists
yeah.
to arrive on scene.
Either that or it was for the tow line for the night before.
Yeah.
The night of the tow.
Possibility too.
And probably the local diver there.
I think so, yeah.
He's having quite the battle there.
Trying to get, I guess, down to find somewhere to attach the rope to the whale.
I don't think he was figuring that he was going to videotape that
Probably not.
at the time. But anyhow, he was successful because
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And like either the line is going ashore, or maybe to secure it until they can get the. No, they had to wait till for a high tide as well, right?
yes, because
Yeah, I think the landing zone was up in the corner there on the flats.
Well, yeah, gone into the night scene now, so this is probably when the tide was up.
must have there's a long tidal flat there, so they must have had that maximum tide.
Yeah, try to get it
go.
as far as they could.
Yeah.
Quite the feat. And obviously that the sharks or something had a good feed off it, according to the damage was done to it.
And there we were into Skipper Terry's cruise.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
Bring it
Jon
up.
Lein, Linda Yates, and Don Snow there. Yeah, Terry was gracious enough to go down and hook onto it and tow it up and got involved into it, as per usual with
Yeah,
everybody
Terry was
around.
always willing to help out.
Pretty fresh on the back from there. A little bit.
John on the,
Okay, keep it there
on the
now. Keep the
wheel.
light right where you do. Up a little
Trying
bit.
to secure a rope to it, or
yeah,
Keep the light
no
still.
idea what kind of action is taking place, but something like that. Oh, and there's the whale gone aground now. I think they're waiting for some kind of piece of equipment out of tow to shore. And
Yeah, get it to the point where when the tide goes out, then they're good to go with the autopsy, I guess, or
I guess that's what you call it.
yeah,
yeah,
A whale topsy.
whale autopsy.
yeah. So anyway, I guess we'll.
The loader's
Looks like
coming
a
on
piece of
scene.
equipment is there, so we'll just go into the video now and just listen to the people that's there, and you'll see a wonderful crowd of people show up and take a great interest into it. So we'll go on into the video.
You may even see it yourself.
wood around, I guess, later in the day, but I hope the local people Never seen one, never laid out.
Everybody around. Me? Yeah, what? I just don't. Yeah, I can't just come take the wood. All done something. Mostly is this.
Where all day.
Yeah, the one in it.
Are you up there, Piggy?
Cowles Ultra. Scott Cowles.
I think the first priority would be the Kathy has come with an ultrasound device to measure the blubber thickness of the animal. And she wants to do that over the dorsal midline and along, points along the dorsal or lateral to the ventral midline if possible. There's not a lot there. So I think the first priority is
and when you do that, you also need to figure out exactly the blubber depth.
Yeah. And so we might have to roll the animal.
Okay, well, we've got the machinery.
We've got the machinery. Because I don't think we can see the dorsal midline at this stage. Yeah. So at the same time we can...
That's all right, we can affect it.
Okay.
And we can just remember that we have to do that at certain stages too.
And then at the same time we do that, hopefully we can get a look at the top of the head for the velocity pattern and see if we can match the individual. What we'll need to do is we'll draw a picture of the pattern and we'll need to fax it back to Boston so we can match it to the pattern. We didn't bring these books up with us. It's quite hefty.
There's a fax in the pottery.
Okay. So hopefully they can look at it and give us the best estimate. The baleen, I guess getting that out would be the first priority. I'd like to get a couple of baleen plates for DNA analysis, or maybe some food study analyses, where they've been feeding. And then
That'll work for plating.
that's right. We need to get skin. I think the skin is maybe not so degraded that it won't work for DNA. So we have to get skin and cut it into little pea-sized chunks and put it in DMSO.
You have DMSO?
I think
Catherine
I have
has it along.
Oh,
You do? Great.
And
Okay.
it's in a saturated salt.
No, that's such a... If we didn't have DMSO, we could do salt. Now, I'm wondering the other options for DNA if the skin is too degraded is bone, but I think we can wait and see. I'm not sure we need to do that. Do you think the skin will be all right? I think this is too degraded, plus we have some in freezer storage from last August, a year ago last August. It's in fairly good shape.
So we won't worry about that. So
I don't
you
think
didn't
we
have
need
to
to worry
bring
about
those coolers like I told you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Catherine went to great exchange to get liquid nitrogen in the coolers.
Oh, really? Well, that'll be helpful for some of this stuff. Yeah. And then the other thing, which probably won't be relevant, is to collect cyanids or the whale ice and the velocity, but I think they'll probably be gone. I don't think they'll be any. But if there are cyanids, they get collected and put into 70%. So that's, for Pierre, you'll collect as you can samples for histology.
My main interest is to be there as we cut up the whale, and if there is anything important to see, then to record it. So it's pretty straightforward.
What I would add at the outset is that if we can really look at the carcass and take pictures, so that if there's any possible way of sort of inferring how he might have died, even from deer or poison or something like that. And as we're going through the skeleton, if there's broken bones, that's really important to find that out. And because at the end of the day, the community wants to collect the skeleton, we'll go over every single one.
You have done some dissection with Darlene Ketton, of the ears. I would really be interested in seeing what you look for specifically and so on, because there were instances of hemorrhage in the ears, eh?
In
And
this
I've
guy, I don't think we'll be able to tell
Yeah.
on hemorrhaging and stuff like that, but in terms of fractures,
Yeah.
some of the bones with the humpback that were exposed to high intensity stuff were actually fractured.
Yeah.
So it's worth looking at.
So you could comment on the kinds of, once we get to that stage, the kind of fracture that you saw in those humpback whales, just so that I have a better understanding of what you were looking for.
We'll make sure the she gets to examine the ears. So they'll probably still be in the skull. But over the next couple of days, I'll take them out and I'll get the stuff. What's your situation with permits? You make me tremble, you Americans.
Make ourselves tremble. We have Jerry Conway, DFO, says he has a CITES export permit. And,
Okay. So we're covered on that?
we're covered on that, and I think Michael Moore has the import permits. I think we could also update ours. He's a good repository. He has a lot of freezer space, and make it easy to go through him.
Okay. And do you know the numbers of these? You can take this with you on the airplane? Or are we that covered?
No.
Or
No.
all tissues then will have to go to the lab?
Yeah.
And then we'll store them and then we'll work out the export.
And a lot of the tissues will actually stay here. The DNA, the skin, etc., will be done at McMaster. And the fatty acid study is being done in Halifax. So a number of them will be able to stay.
All right. Yeah.
The baleen, I have to find out where that ship is, but I'll check on that.
Okay, Pierre, what do you have on your list that we haven't covered?
Not really. Just all what I said is there. As long as I'm around, as you dissect the whale and look for anything that looks suspicious. Already I will have learned quite a bit. But as I said, that business of the middle ear problems, I'm particularly interested in that because I haven't had many opportunities to look for damage there.
Okay,
And
once we get the skull off, then we can just take that.
it would be nice, and I realized that by this time any evidence of hemorrhage would be pretty much gone. But still, in terms of the patterns of fracture that you have seen on humpback whale, I would really stand to learn from that.
Andre, you have particular interest. Okay, Catherine, you want to do a time since death? You got your co-authors here.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any particular interest
No,
here?
I'm
We're
gonna
gonna
do
follow
some-
the boss.
We'll plunge in and we'll do as much
I
of the
know
dirty
you
work
bet.
as we
You love
can.
this.
Yeah.
You don't even find it
So
disgusting.
at the very least, we'll just get dirty.
Well, all the dirty jobs we get to the best. All
You're
Okay.
included.
Just to let's take jobs now. Okay, we've gone through it. So everybody, if anybody else has anything to add, let's add it now. But otherwise, let's give everyone jobs so that we understand who's going to be doing what. We probably need a dry person, right? And at the outset, we're going to want to measure.
Yeah.
One of the things I didn't mention was a tape measure.
Yeah, boy.
She's going to make a PhD.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll do the measurements right at the outset.
And we have a form. I don't know if we're going to use.
Yeah, we want to use your form so that we're as standard as we can be for all right whale dissections. And somebody that's familiar with the form can be the dry person and say this is exactly the measurement.
Okay.
And this is a whatever.
Okay.
Okay. Now, who wants to take what job? You've got your machinery, so we know what job is yours. And what help do you need to do that?
I'll need probably Amy. We were going through it last night. The two of us can work together on that.
Okay.
And also, I guess beyond that, just being to photograph.
Yeah, we'll need somebody to help with cutting the core samples
Yeah.
out maybe as we measure them. Somebody can come behind and
Yeah.
take the plug out, and then we can do the measurements on the plug.
Yes.
Do they do the measurement on the plug or on the because the plug will sort of expand, right?
Right.
They
Right.
have to
Yeah.
do it from the.
So actually, what we should do is probably make the measurements first. Make most of the measurements,
Right.
and then after that.
But once we take the plug out,
Yeah.
they use a ruler, right?
Right.
And that should probably be done on the outer ring, not the core itself, because once you cut the core out, there's some chance it will expand.
Yeah, okay.
Misread your measurements.
Okay, we'll set up, we can get as many tables as we want. We'll set up one for a work table for samples, and we'll set up the second as a R&R table, and we'll have the food there.
Okay.
And if you want more, tell us now and we can sort of repeat it. Okay, and you, I suppose all of you want to take pictures, but you should be responsible for the ID pictures.
Yeah, yeah.
The Baleen, I suppose Pierre can lead on that.
Not really, no. You mean?
Well, we might need.
Oh, you mean to do it?
To do
Oh,
it.
I would play.
Yeah, okay. And we may need some help. We'll get some fries and things like this.
We have our classic dissecting equipment. So we have quite a few knives, a bigger knife and a cleansing knife. Did you bring
I
any?
brought 2 of those.
If anyone's
lovely
using our knives,
The
they're razor sharp. So
Good.
The guard?
be very
Oh,
careful.
finally a sharp knife. All my life I've been waiting for.
These are extremely sharp.
I'm gonna give you my jackknife and sharpen that too. Yeah. Okay. Good.
You do? You brought some knives?
Okay. What other jobs now? I guess we'll just sort of as we go through the list, we'll all be there to help.
Yeah, and we'll also want to do videotaping at the same time.
Okay. Are there any
I'm-
jobs we can give students? Could a student be responsible for your video? Or do you want to get in there and, you know?
It might be better to have somebody who's going to be here the whole day, who can stay dry and can.
How about Kate? Kate can be here all day, and you can show her how to work the camera.
Yeah,
And,
be up for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
And it's
Catherine
really
does voice.
very helpful to sort of explain or have whoever you're filming explain what they're looking at,
Okay.
so that we have a record of like what, not just that they're cutting into something, but what they're actually looking for, or what the measurement is of, or things like that. So talk as much as you can, or whatever talk as much as they can about what you're filming.
every once in a while, I say that's really disgusting. Okay. And you can do other things, Kate, but that would be really helpful. Yeah, the responsibility.
So we'll set up the pace
And
so
then
you can.
just, you know, what you're interested in. That's what she wants pictures of. So if you're interested in what she's doing, photograph what she's doing. And the same with each one.
And we'll direct you if there's things that we. And everybody should actually, if they find something interesting that should be filmed,
Yeah.
documented, call you over and show it to you.
And with the school kids too, I mean, you know, there's a lot of interesting videos where they have very active table time, so they're very aware of the campus and stuff. So once in a while, when you with kids, you know, just take pictures of the kids and the teachers, and all of that stuff. Yeah. That's part of probably one of the more important parts.
I'm here to do the bull work, so you guys can order me around as you wish, along with Pierre.
I have a sample right here I'd like to analyze. A little bugger died needlessly. Okay, do we need to do anything else?
So who should we
Everybody-
assign somebody for measurements? Are you gonna?
Sure, if one of you, I think Amy, you're more familiar with these than anyone. If you run the data sheets on the measurements,
Okay.
and then you direct the measurers,
Okay.
and you know, maybe Andre, Catherine.
Okay. Copy here of the
Oh, in the back.
on the back.
Yeah.
Take the measurements for you. Okay. Right.
My guess is that it'll be an hour or so before we have to start work. So if you have some personal things to do, you can do it. I'm hoping that we'll have crowd control on the road because I'm worried about an accident. I've called the Mounties, I've called the Department of Transportation, and so we'll hopefully have help with that. But we may, in fact, pause and just have to do a little crowd control. That schools from a couple of communities are bringing their kids here, and I'm sort of encouraging teachers to do it systematically, but we'll see. We may end up with a glut of kids at one time, and so with everything sort of pauses. And if you don't mind, I may ask you for each of you to talk about what you're doing for the classes. And you can say why you're here and things like this, and what you're looking for. We've got lots of time, so it's not a problem. At the end, when we've gotten all the science done, then we'll collect the skeleton. And I'm hoping that enough kids will show up so that they won't have great genes on it, stuff like this. We'll try and involve the kids at that point, and we'll have lugging stuff and cleaning bones and things like this. And we'll have a first aid kit when there's inevitably cuts. Now, you have gloves.
Yeah, I have a few pairs of sturdy gloves and some disposable gloves. Having known that, I could have brought many more. But
okay, well, if we don't have enough, we'll get them. But last year I had a fellow with steel I almost lost a finger just because of a bloody dolphin. And so, if you cut yourself, you really have to be careful.
You do have steel fingers.
A steel finger, yeah.
From what? From cutting a dolphin?
Yeah, it's a very aggressive stuff. And, we just caught it in the nick of time.
So you cut yourself and just by handling the blubber or whatever?
Yeah, I was cleaning the skeleton there.
Yeah.
So if you nick yourself or if you have existing cuts, really don't take care. We don't know what's on this stuff. Undoubtedly piles. And be careful with the knives. and whatever else I can tell you. We have a lot of time, so we're not pressed for time. We can take our time all the way over that. Well, good. And thank you all for coming. I know it's an effort for all of you to come.
Getting it all coordinated.
Okay, well, maybe a couple of you can light a bonfire in some good spot, and that because kids will be coming and they'll get cold, and it also serves as a kind of focus away from us, so people can chat among themselves.
Yeah, right.
There's starter and matches in my truck. Catherine, if you could maybe get some food, and we'll set up a picnic table a little ways away. I have detergent and paper towels up to where I do. So before you go to the rail, there's a picnic table with the food. Here. I know standards sort of fall away during the day.
Oh yeah.
Could have a pail of soapy water.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, good idea. And one fine gentleman has gone to get his capsules. Tell you what they do. Now, not all of them are able to yell as loud as I can, so I'll ask them to speak up, but you'll have to probably listen pretty hard. I'll let Amy tell you first what she does and what she did in school and what she's going to do today.
Hi, I'm Amy Knowlton. I work at the New England Aquarium in Boston, and our research group focuses on North Atlantic right whales, which live along the eastern seaboard of the U.S. and Canada. And most of what we do is we curate a photo identification catalog of individual right whales. We can tell a right whale apart by natural markings on their head. So we spend many painstaking hours taking photographs, usually from shipboard and aerial surveys, and then we match them to our catalog that's based in Boston. So today we're going to look very carefully at this animal and see if we can tell how it died, and try and tell a whole bunch of things about it and get a good idea about how old it is and a number of number of interesting things that we can learn from a carcass that we can never learn from a live animal. Of course, we don't like to see the carcasses, but sometimes, of course, it happens sometimes. And, I don't know all that John told you, but one of the things that are, several things that are impacting North Atlantic right whales is they get entangled in fixed fishing gear and hit by ships. And down in the US and Canada, probably south of here, there's quite a lot of that going on. And unfortunately, many of the carcasses that we find are killed as a result of these interactions. So we're working very hard in both the States and Canada to come up with measures to prevent these sort of incidents from happening. And certain things, no, we don't know. Don't know for sure. Sometimes you can only tell if it's been hit by a ship if it has broken bones. Sometimes there are external cuts from a propeller cut, but oftentimes there's just broken bones from the blunt impact of a ship. So some of the measures we're working on in the States to try and reduce these interactions is developing fishing gear modifications to fishing gear that would allow a whale maybe to get entangled in the line but reduce the severity of that entanglement by having the line break immediately instead of having it drag around heavy gear. So it's and then with the shipping issue, we're trying to create areas where shipping should not go into, or at least make ship captains aware of the issue so that they keep a sharp eye out for right whales and maybe divert course around them. Because many ship captains have a sense, their sense is that whales will get out of the way of ships. Probably in many cases they do, but in the cases they don't, if they could take avoidance action rather than relying on the whale, it might prevent some accidents from occurring.
I'll introduce another person. This is Pierre Dow, and he can tell you where he's from and what he does.
I'm from Prince Edward Island. There is a veterinary college there, and I am a veterinary pathologist. You know what it means? My interest in life is to look at dead bodies to see why they died. So that's why I'm here. This animal is quite decomposed, so I may we may never be able to determine the cause of its death, but we'll try to look hard for it. It's only by dissecting it and cutting it in bits and pieces that you may find some damage in there that might tell you what was the cause of its death. And we may collect some tissues, look at them under the microscope. Might help us a bit to determine a bit closely what may have happened to it. That's it.
My name is Greg, and I also work at the Atlantic Vet College. I'm a support technologist, so I work in the lab and help Pierre get the samples ready for the microscope, and I'm out here to help him collect those samples and keep them in such a way that they'll still be in good shape when we get them back to PBI.
Over here is Andre Roca, and he can tell you where he's from and what he's doing here in Newfoundland. Real loud. And we've got one extra person, and she's going to take pictures of you all and us all, and she's Kate Watson from the United States, and she's helping us out today with a variety of jobs. So what we'll do now is we'll go down close to the whale. Don't go so close you get your feet wet, and then I'll give you a chance to ask questions about the whale. This is the back end, and the interesting thing about a whale's tail, you know how a fish swims like this? A whale swims like this. And one of the curious things about this animal, this species of animal, is they take their tail and they hold it up when it's very windy into the air, and they actually let the wind push them along, which is so they actually sail. The other thing, the reason they have a tail like this is probably so they can use the waves to help them swim through the water. If you're this big and fat, very difficult to drive around all day. And this whale drives around all the time and has to supply the energy to do that. So he has a tail that goes in the waves, and he'll actually get pushes from the waves just because of the way his tail is designed. As you go up, you can see the chunks that are missing. The skin is black on this whale, but there's some things that have been bitten out or worn out or something. We're not sure why these parts are missing right now, but it could be that a shark ate him after he died, or this is a young animal and they're kind of stupid and slow, and so sharks maybe caught him and started eating on him, and over time that's what killed him. We don't know exactly what these holes are in the skin, but it could be from sharks or a killer whale or something like that. Or it could have been that he just came up on shore, rolled around on the rocks, and these kind of just wore in the side of the whale. To do is learn as much about the species by dissecting it as we can. This particular individual is a right whale, and in Newfoundland and Labrador they're really one of our standard whales, but because of whaling they're so reduced in numbers we rarely see them. The first 10 years I worked with whales, we only saw a right whale on 4 occasions, only 4 times. Now in recent years, with more people working and so on, we see about 1 right whale every 2 years. But they're very rare indeed. In the whole North Atlantic, this animal is one of only 300 that remain. At one time they were very abundant, and Basque whalers at Red Bay and the whalers that went to the Labrador coast came to kill this particular species. And they would row after them in a boat, and they'd stab them with harpoons that they just threw by hand. And they liked this whale because he was easy to catch. He's a very slow whale. He swims very slowly. He's not aggressive. Some whales, if you stab them with a harpoon, they turn around and they'll pay you back. And that's no fun with such a big animal. And once they would kill them, another great thing about this whale was he didn't sink. This animal will weigh 20 to 30,000 pounds. And you could imagine if it sunk after you killed it, it would be a great disappointment because you couldn't pull it back up so you could get it. But this one floats, and that's really why they were called the right whale, because they were so slow you could catch them, and when you killed them, they floated, and so that's the right whale to kill. The Basque people, way back in the 16th century, actually killed so many of these whales that they became commercially extinct way back then. They're so vulnerable to human impact that they just disappeared, so there was commercially not useful to hunt them. So the Basque people switched to catching codfish and seals and things like that. And so that was, way back they disappeared. And then because they stopped fishing them, they grew back in numbers, but then other people came and caught whales here too, and this one was easy to kill, so they killed too many of this. There's been no whaling on this species any place in the world for now about 70 years. And the numbers still are not coming back. And there's a number of reasons for this. One is because the population was so reduced in size, there was a genetic constriction. Everybody was breeding with their offspring or their fathers or things like this. And so there just weren't enough whales to maintain the population. And now, when they're in some genetic trouble, additionally, they're very vulnerable to us, again, through fishing gear and through large ships. Fishing gear, you remember when we were not having a moratorium, the water was just laced with fishing gear. And these guys swim very slowly, they're kind of stupid, they evolved in an environment where nets are a very unusual barrier. You know, you heard of Indians, how they used to chase buffaloes off a cliff. You could do that on the prairies because buffaloes hadn't evolved with the problem-solving skill of avoiding cliffs. They didn't know about cliffs, so they walked right over them. Right whales evolved in an ocean where it's very unusual to have a net barrier that you have to go around. And so they don't have the skill of avoiding nets, so they get caught and that kills them. The second thing that kills them is large vessels collide with them. These guys almost, lots of times, look like they're asleep at the surface. And they're not afraid of anything. You know, if you're that big, you don't have to be afraid of things. So the ship plows into them. A modern oil tanker will take something like 20 miles to stop and like 3 miles to turn. So there's no way the ship can avoid them. In the United States, they have a program where they'll see a right whale, they'll have somebody stand by it and radio to all the vessels in the area a bulletin that says, hey, there's a whale here, avoid this area. So before the ship sees the whale, they can take some maneuvers that will avoid crossing its path. But it hasn't been very successful because every year we find a couple of whales like this out of a population of less than 300 that have been hit by ships. And the other thing we find is a couple of whales like this that have been killed in fishing gear. And when you take 4 whales that are perhaps adults that would have a chance to be normally contributing to the population out of a reduced population, that probably means this is the last right whale that you'll ever have an opportunity to see. We're not, you go up further, just in front of that where the rope breaks over, it is one of the side fins. He has small side fins on each side. And these are different than a humpback. You probably have all seen humpbacks, which is a whale about this size. Humpbacks have big, long things like my arm. Right whales have little short ones. Going up, the people that are over here can see it best. You come up and see the actual top jaw of the animal. The animal's more or less upside down, and the plates that are hanging up are the baleen plates. And this is how he gets the food. This whale actually swims and lets water go through his mouth as it swims, and then the baleen plates strain out all the small little plankton and so on, and that's how he gets his food. And then every once in a while he closes his mouth. He doesn't want to drink a lot of seawater, he closes his mouth, swallows the plankton that have accumulated, and then he goes back, just swimming slowly through the water, skimming out all the food. Does anyone have any questions about the whale?
Right here.
Yeah.
The birds probably ate the holes into it.
Sorry, say it louder.
The birds probably ate the holes into it.
That's, well, the person here said maybe the birds ate some of the whale. And that's true. The whale has been covered with gulls since we've been here. And a lot of the marks like this on the tail, that's from the gulls. We've seen them do that. And the other bird that I've seen feeding on it is an eagle. An eagle was here yesterday for a little period of time. And the crows have been very interested. They flew over and sort of looked at it, but I think the gulls have kept them away. So birds certainly like quail meat, even when it's this rotten. Okay, well, just to tell you what we're going to do now with the whale, once the water drops back further, we'll start examining it. And we'll take our samples, and that's going to take us a few hours. And then when we're all done, we're going to take all the bones from this whale and clean them. And what we're hoping is the whale will come back to the community, and they'll be able to set up a display here. So we'll see how that works, but we'll be working all day long to clean the bones off on the whale. The lower jaw
always good. Got 99% of the
Are we supposed to come break back?
I don't think they make them. Here, that's not right.
Oh, that's still wet. Really. We're not going to start cutting stuff until about an hour.
Right. So you might not be able to tell any external difference between what you think might be a postmortem change versus a... I mean, you could only tell for sure through histology, but visually you might not be able to see anything.
Visually, when I see something like that, which is just very, very fluid material, I'm very hesitant to think that it is an antemortem change because it's not organized enough. It just looks like fluid, whereas a blood clot will have more consistency to it. That's what I would expect to see grossly, and also not confined like this to just underneath the skin. And I think that's what that's what puzzled me and Scott at the Digby right whale, that all this seemed to be primarily between the blubber and the muscle mass, and not involving the muscle tissue itself that much, or so very superficially. And if you think of a trauma that would cause enough damage to cause blood clot underneath in the subcutis, why wouldn't it cause a lot of blood also in the muscle itself? And what could the bite marks that were seen be a primary predatory or scavenging?
Yeah, I was talking to him about that last night. You know how most of those hollows were on the belly.
Yeah.
When a dead right whale.
Oh yeah.
She floats the belly up, and I'm wondering if any of that occurred pre-mortem.
Yeah.
The bites. It could have been attacked.
Yeah.
Hard to prove that.
Yeah. I know I read about Greenland shark really preferring the blubber.
Oh really? Oh.
Selectively going for the blubber.
Of dead or alive?
Animals or? Yeah, I think so.
Really?
Dead or alive? Yeah. You know Zoolocus, or you know of Zoolocus on Sable Island?
Yeah, yeah.
She has become very interested in shark kills from seals, and she figures that many of them are Greenland sharks. And we had an episode this past winter of a whole bunch of dead seals washing up on shore. They were talking about Greenland sharks, etc. And that's why I remember reading about their patterns, how really they go for the blubber, they go for the
absolutely.
Tissue.
It's got to be rough.
So it would be compatible with that. Being scavenged or pretty.
So I end up holding it way up.
You could find more information about how much fat one should expect in a young animal at this time of year in terms of blubber thickness.
Yeah, there should be that information.
Yeah, because I still think, as I was telling you yesterday, that I would have expected more fat around the heart. So, and considering that it was a small animal coming from so far north, that it must have been separated from its family for quite some time, and it would make sense that it'd be at least in moderate, if not poorer body condition.
Right.
So could the two be combined, that it was in poor body condition and may have suffered attacks?
And how much weight?
Don't know how much weight. Estimated could be maybe 20,000 pounds. 25,000 pounds. Rough estimate. Maybe more, maybe up to 30,000.
You got any idea how old it was?
I estimate based on comparison to right whales, it could be about 2 years old. So, a youngster.
Got no idea how it died?
No, not at this
Not
stage.
yet.
No.
How long will it take to find that out?
Well, in this case, we might not ever find out how it died because it was decomposed enough that some of the internal organs are too far gone to tell for sure. But it'll take a couple of weeks to get all those samples analyzed.
You guys are grinning back enough, you make us laugh.